Good deal. All right. Okay, so we will go ahead and get things started. Thanks again for joining. This is Emily Norris, Manager of Career Services. And today we are going to be reviewing the Listing Bootcamp, how to win more listings this spring. So thank you so much for being here. And I'm really proud of you for being here and taking this opportunity while we might have a little more time in our home office to better yourselves and ready yourselves and put yourself in the best position when our business might return to usual. Okay, so thank you so much for being here. And I wanted to start off our meeting first with a little gratitude. I feel like we could all use a little extra gratitude in our lives during these current times. So I've added a quote to your screen. Hopefully you can see that. Look for reasons to be grateful even when you're struggling. Taking time to give thanks for even the smallest blessings can help you appreciate the good things in your life. So what I would love for you to do is to put something that you're grateful for that you'd like to share in the question box. If there's something you're particularly grateful for today, I'd love to start our meeting out with a little bit of gratitude. Now I'll start us off while I'm waiting for some gratitude to roll in, because I'm sure out of everyone on the call, there are some things that we're grateful for. Okay, we have Pam. Sunshine, so my 4-year-old can play outside. Great, yes. I'm sure that there are a lot of other mothers that can relate. I know there's a lot of homeschooling sessions that are currently going on right now too. They're really great. You can take this time to invest in yourself. Grateful for the opportunity to get this education to grow. Absolutely. Ability to continue to work even from home. Absolutely. I share the same sentiment. Great. Well, I'm grateful for all of you and this opportunity to be with you this afternoon. So thank you so much for your time and for being here, and we'll go ahead and get things started. So given the current situation that we're in, I didn't want to jump right into our listing bootcamp and bypass things, because I know that there's a little bit of uncertainty in everyone's minds right now. So I wanted to share with you 2 graphs that I found on Keeping Current Matters, and I found them to be helpful and encouraging, and I'm hoping that you will as well. This first one here, we can see, again, a graph from Keeping Current Matters. So this is the relationship between the treasury rate and the mortgage rate. And you can see that the mortgage rate typically follows the treasury rate. So we can see for almost 50 years, the 30-year mortgage rate has moved in unison with the 10-year treasury rate. So even a small change in the 10-year treasury rate due to increased uncertainty, let's say that slight drop is a 1.6%, that would imply a 30-year fixed mortgage rate as low as 3.3%. And assuming no change in household income, that would mean a house buying power gain of $21,000. So that's a 5% increase. So I just want to encourage you that there is still going to be a demand for housing, right? So, and savvy buyers out there and sellers are going to take advantage of these times and of the current mortgage rates that we're seeing. So I found that to be really encouraging. So amid uncertainty, the house buying power of U.S. consumers can still benefit significantly. So please keep that in mind during these times. And then I also thought that this was encouraging. This was released last week, Goldman Sachs GDP forecast. So we can see right now we're not experiencing any appreciation immediately, so no positive gains right now, but gains are still being forecasted into the second half of this year and you can see showing that they'll be even stronger in early 2021. Okay, so I thought that was encouraging. I wanted to share that with you as well before we get started. Amidst the uncertainty, I think it's a good reminder for us. So hopefully you find those helpful. And at the end of this presentation, I'll be sending you over this PowerPoint deck. So if there is anything included in these slides that you did find valuable and that you'd like to share, you'll have those at your disposal as well. So before we get into our listing bootcamp, the only other thing that I wanted to make sure to bring your attention to, if you located the questions box, right under the question box, there are some handouts that are attached. Okay, so these handouts are for you to download and make use of on and after our webinar. Okay, so the first document that we'll look at during our time together today will be the pre-listing interview. So if you just click on the title of the document, it should pull up on your screen just like so. But there's also a listing consultation, a luxury affiliate top tools PDF, a hot and warm list PDF, which I'll explain, and then the Harry Norman Flow marketing guide. So do make sure that you have those and can see those on your screen. And again, I'll follow up after the call as well, but I just want to make sure that you have access to those for the purposes of our call. Okay? So one other thing, if you have any other questions before we get started, or if there's anything that you currently don't have access to, if you just drop a note in the question box before we get started. So Tanya is saying, FYI, the handouts are above the question box. On my screen, they're below the question box. So, but as long as you can identify those, that will be great. John, yes, absolutely. I can get you a copy of that chart without the heading. And in that PowerPoint, you'll just be able to copy and paste that wherever you'd like to, but I can do that for you. All right. Okay, good. All right. Well, let's get things started. With our listing bootcamp. All right. If my screen will only cooperate with me. All right. So let's get things kicked off. Taking a quick inventory of all of the great agents that we have joining on this webinar. There are many of you who are very experienced with sellers. So I'm impressed and I commend you for taking the time to further invest and develop in your craft today. My only disappointment is that we're not all together to where we can collaborate and hear some of your best practices, because I'm sure there are some things that you could inform all of us to add some additional value to the webinar this afternoon. But hopefully everyone today at least finds one thing of value that they can take and apply to their business. So our goal for our time together today, first we want to be able to understand and of course identify prospective sellers. So understanding who our sellers are is going to help us better serve our sellers. And then of course identifying, well, where are our prospective sellers so that we can actually put these listing consultation strategies into practice, right? And then we'll move into developing a seller process. So we'll spend more time on going through the pre-listing packet and the listing consultation overview to give you a little bit of a roadmap of one suggested way that you could develop a process of working with sellers. Out of all of the top agents that I've spoken with and asked about their tricks of the trade, how they cultivate sellers and great relationships and listings, they always default to a process that they have in place. So a bulletproof process that gives them confidence. And when they have confidence, the seller, of course, feels that confidence and feels confident moving forward to list with them. So I'm hoping that this process, of course, take the aspects of it that you like and make it your own, but I'm hoping that it brings that same confidence to your business. And then last but not least, we'll talk through defining the value of Harry Norman, right? So when you are on that listing consultation, you feel confident in talking through what you provide and what Harry Norman provides you to be able to do your job well and sell their house effectively. So those are our goals. We've got a lot to cover, so we'll dive right in. I wanted to share with you the NAR 2019 profile of home sellers. Again, going back to understanding who our sellers are, right? So here's a snapshot of today's sellers. 44% traded up to a larger home. The median equity gain of those purchases was $60,000. We're seeing that sellers are spending more time in their homes now. So 10 years, there's tenure in home before selling. So previously we were seeing closer to 5 to 7, right? So we're seeing people stay in their homes a little bit longer, which, side note, means that needs to be one extra reason we develop a good follow-up plan so that we're staying in touch and top of mind with everyone that we work with. We can see that the distance between the homes sold and the new home purchased is 20 miles. And this is promising. 89% used a real estate agent or broker to sell. So I thought that was really encouraging because the majority of home sellers still do see the value and benefit of your service. So additional comments from the NAR 2019 profile of home sellers. 75% of recent sellers contacted only one agent before finding the one that they worked with to sell their home. 66% of sellers found their agent through a referral from a friend, neighbor, or relative. So that's more than half. They're working with people on a referral basis. And that's really how we want to position our business too, starting by working with the people that we know. And then 70%, again, all of these things really encouraging, saying that they would recommend their agent for future services. So that gives us a little bit of intel on understanding our seller. And this gives us further intel on understanding, I'm sure some of you may recall this from earlier classes, but the top 3 reasons that people sell, and this is also from NAR, is location, so a desire to be closer to family and friends. Number 2, the size, so the current house size is too small. And then number 3, work, so a job-related relocation. And so what I would encourage you to do is keep these things in mind when you are talking to your sphere, when you're talking to the people that you know, because it's going to be important for you to be able to identify when people have a potential real estate need. And if we know that these are the top 3 reasons per NAR that people sell, then these are things that we should be thinking through and keeping top of mind when we are having conversations with our sphere, okay? So keep those things in mind, and hopefully that will be helpful for you. Top 3 seller fears. First and foremost, selling property too cheap. Second, paying a realtor too much. And third, the property not selling, okay? And so part of our job within the seller process overview is to remember these fears as well, so that in our process, we can naturally ease these seller fears, right? Particularly number 2, paying a realtor too much. We're going to make sure that we do a really, really good job of showing and demonstrating all the ways that we're going to add value in representing them, that we're going to absolutely dismantle that fear. And we'll take care of addressing the others in our seller process as well. So those are important things for you to remember. All right, so who are your sellers? Well, first and foremost, we want to start with the people that we know. The people that we know, like, and trust. Those people are going to be the people who are going to be the first to want to do business with us, okay? So now is particularly a really good time while you might have more time in your home office to work on your database, right? So work on all of the people that you know. I'm sure there's probably some contacts that you haven't had the opportunity. Maybe you stayed a little bit busy or you haven't had the opportunity to add those contacts into your database yet. So make sure that you're still consistently paying attention to your database and staying in touch with those people that you know. Right now, I think it's a particularly important time to stay connected, even while we're practicing this social distancing, right? The most valuable gift that you can give to anybody is just one moment of your time. So just a quick call to check in on those people that you know, see how they're doing with things. That's going to be memorable, and they're going to continue to think of you, and hopefully they're going to think of you for staying in touch with them when it does come time for them to sell. Number 2, to develop a warm list. So kind of tiering from the people that you know. We want to tune in to what is actively going on with the people that we know, right? So what are maybe the potential life changes? Thinking back to those top reasons that sellers move, that could be applicable to your sphere, right? That may prompt a real estate need, that may cause them to need your services. So that's one handout that I did attach that hopefully you can have access to. It's the hot and warm list. So it takes you through developing a hot list. Those are kind of the immediate people that you're likely doing business with now. And then your warm list, those are people that you've identified within the people that you know that do have some type of life change that might prompt a real estate need. So in that PDF, there's some great questions for you to ask and bring to mind when you're thinking through the people that you know to kind of help cultivate that warm list. So hopefully that proves to be a helpful resource for you. And then third, another great way to help identify potential sellers is to implement the practice of annual real estate reviews for everyone that you know, okay? And you now have the category in Toolkit CMA. It's a Harry Norman branded real estate review. It includes this nice cover letter, which kind of gives an overview of what a real estate review is. Each year, I like to provide my network with a real estate review so that you're informed on your home's value in today's market. Enclosed is an updated snapshot of the real estate activity over the past 12 months for the neighborhoods surrounding your home. So this isn't a comparative market analysis, but this is just a really quick snapshot to give everyone in your database the opportunity to understand the current real estate market activity, and it gives you the opportunity to continue to position yourself as the source of real estate and their trusted advisor. So we give them a little information on the local market relative to their neighborhood, and then it's also really helpful to include a more national outlook as well, which we can find within the 2020 residential real estate forecast that our marketing team created. So hopefully you all have access to that and have been using that resource, but it's a great thing to tie into your real estate review. Okay, so those three things, starting with the people that you know, developing a warm list from the people that you know, and then the warm list that you create, those are likely really good candidates of people that are primary targets for someone that would be interested in a real estate review, right? So hopefully that makes sense. I'm going to move over to the question box because I do see that we may have had a few questions come in. I see a couple of people that can't see the slides. Can I have someone let me know if you're able to see the slides? All right, great. Okay, so we're going to continue on. It doesn't look like there's any questions on the content thus far. So hopefully we're all moving on at the same pace. Okay, so those are great ways, three great ways that we can start to identify and cultivate prospective sellers, those three practices. All right, so now let's get into an overview of the seller process. Again, I know a lot of you on this call are very experienced. You likely have a process that is working well and benefiting you. So hopefully take what you like of this process. This seller process overview is from Ninja. So it's a time-tested seller process that the Ninja Institute has been using for many, many years, and we've seen much success. So I feel confident that you'll find a piece of this process that will be valuable to add to your business. So starting with a little bit of a roadmap of what that seller process looks like. So first and foremost, we always have a pre-listing interview. And that pre-listing interview, that's essentially that first point of connection that you have with that prospective seller, okay? So that incoming phone call where you get acquainted with the seller and ask some of the important questions that you need to know to most effectively help them, okay? And there's a pre-listing interview consultation that we're going to review together today. And hopefully that will help you to navigate this kind of first meeting, this first phone call with ease. From that pre-listing interview and the information that we gather from that seller in that first point of contact, we're going to decide our approach of how we'll work with them from there, okay? So one might be that we have one appointment with that seller, and in that one appointment, we are going through all of the marketing that Harry Norman offers, all of the ways that you're going to support them to get their home sold, and going through a comparative market analysis, doing the walkthrough, so the whole shebang. Or based on the information that we gather from our seller in that first conversation, we might decide this is a prospective seller where we have a little bit more of opportunity to build additional rapport with. So we're going to space out our meetings into 2 appointments, okay? And on that first call is when we're going to be going through our marketing strategy, getting acquainted with them, getting acquainted with the house. And on that second appointment, after we've had a chance to be in the house, we can go back, put together a more robust comparative market analysis, if you will, and it gives us that extra opportunity again to build rapport. So regardless of if we are going with a one-call appointment meeting or a 2-call appointment, we are always going to provide that prospective seller with a pre-listing packet prior to our appointment. Okay, in our pre-listing packet, we'll be creating that using Toolkit CMA. There's a folder in Toolkit CMA that's entitled Pre-Listing Packets. Okay, and what that does is it does a couple things. First and most obvious, it's a great point of differentiation, right, between you and the other agents that this prospective seller might be speaking with. But it also sets the stage for how you're going to be doing business with them in a very professional way, because the pre-listing packet is very nice, Harry Norman branded, and it gives them an overview of what the seller process looks like. So it's giving them an opportunity to be informed before you even walk through the door. Okay, so that's just a little bit of a roadmap of what the overall seller process looks like. And now we'll get into each step. So first, if we gathered on that pre-listing interview, so on that first phone call, that initial point of contact that we had with them, if we gather based on that interaction that we feel like they're in a scenario where their house is really easy to price, so maybe they're in a cookie cutter neighborhood, maybe they're in a condominium, maybe they're even in the neighborhood that you live in, so you're already really familiar with home values and the house will be easy to price for you. They indicate any type of urgency, okay, so there's a huge motive that is pushing along the sell and pushing it along quickly, okay? Or 3, you know you're in competition with other brokers. That's going to be the scenarios that would mean you would need to have that one-call process, one-call appointment process, meaning that you're basically doing all the things in that one meeting, right? So we're going to do our walkthrough in that one meeting, giving them an overview of our marketing strategy, pricing. So we're there to get that home on the market as quickly as possible for them, right? So that would be the scenario and the criteria that would give us the indication, okay, we don't really have the extra time, unfortunately, to have 2 opportunities to meet with the seller. We really need to get in there, show our value, and get the job done in this one appointment. Okay, so that's some good criteria that can kind of guide you as to what you will do after that first phone call, after that first pre-listing interview. Okay, a few important things to remember. If you are going on that one-call appointment, ensure that all decision makers will be there, right? A lot of times you'll have one party say, well, you know, I really am the decision maker, you know, but my husband, he can be there, but I really am the one that's going to be calling all the shots, right? But then you get there and you see things might not be as accurate as described, okay? So it's really important, if we're going to be trying to accomplish everything in that one appointment, that we have all decision makers that will be involved there, okay? It's just a great way to get the whole process started off on the right foot, knowing that everyone is on the same page, okay? Particularly when we're discussing pricing. Okay, next, ideally, if it's a one-call appointment and you only have one opportunity to meet with them, it would be ideal if you have the opportunity to be able to hand deliver, drop off the pre-listing packet at their home. So that way, if it is a neighborhood that you might not be completely familiar with, it at least gives you a chance to get acquainted with the area, maybe drive by some of the other comps that you've seen. So it gives you a good opportunity to get acquainted with the home, curb appeal, etc. Now, I know the current times that we're in, right? Some of your listing consultations, these might actually be done virtually. So, of course, it's always acceptable for you to be sending over the pre-listing packet by email. Again, it really is just to help kind of demonstrate your value before you even arrive on that first appointment, and then giving them the opportunity to, at minimum, look through your marketing tools. So that way there's not quite as much for you to review in that one appointment, right? So that it's more of a recap versus going through each thing bit by bit. Okay, and then of course, if we're only having one opportunity to meet with that seller, then we need to make sure that we have a CMA, a comparative market analysis, prepared for that appointment. Okay, so those would be all things we need to keep in mind if we are going to only have one meeting with that seller. Now let's talk about the criteria for a 2-call appointment. And I'd love to take this opportunity to engage all of you. Which do you think would be more advantageous for you, to have one opportunity to meet with a seller or 2? Right, absolutely. So a couple of people saying 2. Why do we feel like 2? More face time is better, absolutely. That more face time is going to give you more of an opportunity to build rapport. And it's also going to give you more of an opportunity to better prepare for coming up with a pricing strategy as well, right? If we have that first appointment, in that first appointment, we can really just focus on the seller, focus on asking the right questions, building rapport, building a connection with them, right? Getting acquainted with the house, what sold them on the house, okay? And then that gives us the opportunity to go back, put together a more informed comparative market analysis. But most importantly, it's all about that rapport and creating a relationship with that seller so they feel like they can trust you. After all, it is the largest financial investment likely of their lives, right? So let's look through some criteria that would indicate from that initial call you have with the seller that you do have the opportunity to have 2 meetings with them. Okay, so first and foremost, if you get a feeling that the home is very unique and difficult, going to be difficult to price without seeing, obviously it's going to be most advantageous for you to have the opportunity to really get in there and understand more about the home itself. If the seller does seem like they're very, very detail oriented, right, they're going to appreciate that extra time with you, that extra time you're willing to invest. And it gives you a better opportunity to really communicate and articulate your value to them. And then if they don't express any type of urgency, then obviously you know that you have a little bit more bandwidth to have 2 meetings with them. And then last but not least, you're not in competition with other brokers, okay? So if we are in competition with other brokers, this is kind of always a debate. So when we are in competition with brokers, sometimes I hear agents say, well, I would prefer to go last if I'm in competition with other brokers. Well, my only question is, what if you elect to go last, right? And then someone else gets the opportunity to get through the door before you, and they hard sell that prospective seller, and then you don't have the opportunity for them to ever meet you. So I personally think that it's always best, if you are in competition, for you to be the first one through the door. So if you know you're in competition, we probably wouldn't want to take the time to space out our meetings with a seller, we'd probably want to keep it to one concise meeting. But if we know that we're not in competition with other brokers, then absolutely we have the bandwidth to meet with them twice and be a little bit more thorough. All right, so a few things to remember if you are going to be having 2 appointments. The first appointment, really that appointment is going to be exclusively for the walkthrough. You'll bring along the listing packet, which essentially is going to be very similar to your pre-listing packet. It'll just be entitled Your Listing Action Plan from Toolkit CMA. And that's going to be with information included in it on the process for you to review with them so that everyone's on the same page of what that seller process looks like. And then again, the review of marketing, what you're going to do to help get their home sold. So that's really going to be the first appointment. Okay, so if you don't have all decision makers there for the first appointment, that's okay. You can tour the home with whomever it is that you're speaking with on that initial pre-listing interview, get to know them, get acquainted to them, understand what's most important to them in the selling process and where you can add value, and review that package. On that first meeting, you'll coordinate the second appointment, and that's the time to make sure that all decision makers are involved in that second appointment, because on that second appointment, that's when you'll be reviewing pricing, you'll be reviewing comps, and you'll want to make sure that you have all decision makers actively engaged in that conversation, right? Because we want the pricing to be really a collaborative group effort that you have everybody bought into. And then you'll want to give an overview of what that second appointment will look like, of course, conveying that you'll be working up a detailed market analysis and you'll discuss a pricing strategy with them. Okay, so that's an overview of what the 1-call appointment process looks like, the 2-call appointment process looks like. But what I'd like to do is run through the pre-listing interview with you. So we're going to do a little bit of a role play here. I've asked Samantha Johnson to pretend like she is my prospective seller for the purposes of this demonstration. And we are going to walk through the pre-listing interview. So all of you, again, have this pre-listing interview under your handout. So you'll just want to click on that handout if you'd like to follow along, okay? And then let's make sure that we still have Samantha on the line here. That would be a critical part.
I'm here.
Yeah, great. So again, for everyone on the call, before we get started on this, when you look at this, I mean, it really does look and feel like a questionnaire, right? And the overall goal is that over time, this pre-listing interview, you would take and mold to your own, however you feel most comfortable with asking some of these questions. So you just take it and make it yours. But these are really just kind of some of the high points that it'll be important for you to understand when you have that first initial phone call with the seller, so you can understand, A, how you're going to serve them best, right? Is it going to be best to have 1 meeting with them, 2 meetings with them? Kind of formulate and decide what your process is going to be from there. But then B, trying to understand how you can best add value. Okay, so I just wanted to preface this pre-listing interview with those comments. So Samantha, we'll just pretend that you called me up and someone from my sphere referred you to me. All right, so hello, this is Emily.
Hi, Emily. My name's Samantha. I had gotten your name from a friend of mine that used you some time ago, and I was hoping I could meet with you to talk about selling my house.
Oh, well, that's so great, and that's so flattering that one of my friends sent you my way. Who is that?
Sarah?
Sarah. Sarah. All right. Great. Sarah's a great person. So glad that she thinks highly enough of me to send you my way. So, Samantha, I have your first name. What's your last name?
Johnson.
Johnson. Samantha Johnson. Well, it's so nice to meet you by phone.
Yes.
And I appreciate you reaching out. So what I'd like to do is go through just a few questions, if you don't mind, that'll better help me get an understanding of your current needs and give me an idea of how I can best work with you. So do you have just a few minutes to go through a few things? Okay, awesome. So Samantha, tell me, where do you live? What's your address?
We are at 6003 Martin Lane, Martin, Atlanta.
Okay. Now, that's a great area, not too far from me. I know the area well.
Yes.
That's great. And that's your mailing address as well, right? That's where
Correct.
You're currently living? All right, awesome. And then will there be any other decision makers that we need to connect with in this process, or?
My husband,
just
at some point. It will be the two of us. So.
All right, your husband at some point. Okay. And what's your husband's name?
Jim.
Jim. All right. I'd rather refer to him by his name. I think he'll probably appreciate that too, rather than me calling him the husband, right? So tell me a little bit about why you're selling and when you need to move.
So we were thinking about trying to upgrade a little bit and have more space. We're not terribly urgent because we want to get through the school year, but we would like to get to the end of the school year and then have it sort of on the market for the end of the school year, but move just as the school year ends if possible, before June.
Perfect. All right. Okay. Well, I know this is a great time to be connecting and to be putting things into motion. So that's great. And tell me a little bit about your house. Bed, bath count.
We have 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. Let's see, it's sort of a townhome, but single story, so more of a garden home, if you will.
Well, that sounds very nice.
1,800 square feet.
Okay. I'm impressed.
Well,
there are a lot of sellers who might not have that intel. And how long have you lived there?
4 years.
4 years. Awesome.
Yeah.
So when you bought 4 years ago, what was it that you just fell in love with and you had to make it yours?
The look of it and the interior was just sort of wide open space, like the living room and the kitchen were wide open. It was a new build, and so it was new, which I had wanted because I didn't want to have to do anything when I moved in. I wanted something ready to go and turnkey. And it had just a small lot for a yard because my goal is to not own a lawnmower.
You're a woman after my own heart. I can absolutely relate to that. Good. Well, that's just really helpful. It'll be helpful when it comes time for us to put your home on the market, for me to really have a better understanding of what features you fell in love with, because that could likely be what's going to attract a buyer to your house as well. So thanks for sharing that. And I know you said it's relatively new, but have you done any updating since you bought it? And if you were going to be staying?
Yes, so the backyard was just, they had just put sod down, if you will, and so we had hired a landscape architect to come in and redo that area and paver it. So the backyard has been done and it's ready to go. But the interior with the kitchen and the bathrooms, we have not done anything.
Okay, all right. Good deal. Well, I'm sure the backyard is beautiful if you had a landscape architect involved in it, and hopefully you're enjoying it right now with the sunshine.
Yes.
So
Wonderful.
if you were going to stay for, say another 5 years, is there anything that you would do to it? Anything else?
So when it was built, the master bath has one of those massive tubs that has tile up around it. I would take that out and put in a more modern tub and change the exterior of the shower area. It just needs a little updating. Those would be the two things I would do.
Okay, so it sounds like pretty minor things. Well, if you would pretend with me for a minute that you're looking at your home through a buyer's eyes, like how would you rate it in its current condition? 10, of course, being model home. On that scale.
I mean, maybe a 6 or a 7. We have a young son, so it can be a little messy at times. But I mean, I would say it's
all right. Well,
and we may need you to come in and take a look and give me some decorating tips on things to change to make it more appealing to somebody.
Absolutely. Well, I'm sure that it's difficult to keep everything model home status with a young one running around, but thank goodness for magic erasers, right?
Yes.
So have you and Jim talked about what you'd like to ask for the property?
Not we know what other places have sold for, but we're not sure. And so which is one of the reasons we wanted to reach out to you first and see if we could meet up with you if possible.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. And we'll discuss, pricing strategy in great detail, but it's just always helpful for me to know if you guys have been keeping up with values, if you already have a number in mind, so that I can make sure I'm considerate of that when I am looking at comparables.
Maybe somewhere around 350 to 400, I would think, depending on, I mean, knowing what other places have sold for, but I don't know where we fall in that are nearby us.
Right. Okay. Well, we'll make sure you're well informed on that front, so no worries there. And only a couple more things, but this next question is really important for me to understand, kind of the top things that you're looking for in your real estate agent. So if there were maybe a top 3 things you could identify that are most important to you, that would be so helpful for me to know.
I would say understanding the process when you come in to walk us through it so we understand how it goes. It always just seems like we find somebody and we go through the process, but we don't really, it just sort of happens, and I don't really understand all of it as it goes along. So that would be one thing too, just communication, just good communication.
All right, so good communication, good understanding of the process. Is there anything else?
Those would be the 2 main things, I think.
Okay, awesome. Well, rest assured, I do have a process in place for how I work with every single one of my sellers. And in fact, this kind of initial phone call is part of the process. These questions I'm asking you so that I can really get a good understanding of how I can add value best to your situation for you and Jim. And communication is super, super important to me. So I think it sounds like we're going to be a really good fit here. Are there any other agents that you've spoken with or have any upcoming meetings with?
No. I trust Sarah, and you came highly recommended, and so she was pretty insistent on me reaching out to you before I spoke with anybody else.
Well, I appreciate that greatly. And we will make sure that we serve you well. So is there anything else that I should know about your home or any other questions that you have for me?
Not at the moment. No.
Not at the moment. Okay. All right. Good deal. Well, let me explain a little bit of what I think would be the next best step.
Okay.
So based on the current timing and we have a little bit of a window to kind of get things ready to be on the market after school gets out. What I'd like to do first is just set up an initial appointment to come by your house, meet with you and Jim, really get further acquainted with each other and understand more about what's important to you in the selling process of your home. During that meeting, we'll go through all of the various marketing resources that I'll offer that'll help to get your home sold. And I know it's really important to you to understand the full seller process. So we'll go through that as well so you can understand what to expect. So that'll kind of be our first initial appointment. And then after we get acquainted, I'll follow back up with you when we get a little bit closer to time so that we can have the most recent comparables to look at, the most recent homes that have sold in recent market activity, so that we can put together a great pricing strategy that you and Jim feel comfortable with. How does that sound?
Great. Fantastic.
Okay, awesome. And in the meantime, I'd like to drop by, and I'll drop it by in your mailbox if that'll work, since we're relatively close by. But what I'd love to do is drop off a pre-listing packet. I know you want to be informed on what the process looks like, so there will be some information in there that reviews what the process looks like, but then we'll discuss that at our appointment as well.
Okay, sounds great.
So only other thing is, when do we meet? So what availability do you have this week? Let's see, we're already to Wednesday. Tomorrow, I can do tomorrow afternoon, or I'm available Friday morning.
Tomorrow afternoon would be great. Anytime around 4:30 or 5.
Okay, perfect. That sounds great. All right, well, let's just say 4:30. And that is so great. Will Jim be joining us?
He will.
Okay, great. All right, well, I'm super excited to have the opportunity to meet both you and Jim. So thank you so much for your time. And again, I'll be in touch with that pre-listing packet, so you can expect that in your mailbox later this evening.
All right. Thank you so much for your time.
All right. Thank you so much, Samantha.
Thanks. See you tomorrow.
Thanks. All right. So let's give Samantha a virtual round of applause. Hopefully you can hear me clapping for you, Samantha. So Samantha, while I have you on the line, what were some questions that stood out to you that you thought, hey, I might want to include that in my pre-listing interview?
I would say what made you move here to begin with? Like, why did you choose this place?
Awesome, because that really kind of helps, gives you a feel for some of the features, right, that you can then promote when you get that listing.
Yeah. I mean,
anybody else, you can engage in that question box too if there's some other things. There's some other people on the line that have other questions that stood out to them. Anything else with you? All right, I like how smooth it seemed. Great. Hopefully that will seem smooth to you. And then someone said that 16 and 17 seemed difficult to ask. So and I kind of skipped over those just based on the context of the conversation that I was having with Samantha, right? And you'll notice I also had skipped over question number 13, right? Question number 13 may have been more applicable and pressing for me to ask if we were in, say, 2008 markets, and we're not. And then with the have you considered going for sale by owner, that, given Samantha's current situation that she was referred over to me, I felt pretty confident that she was wanting someone to work with, and she had alluded that she had had some experiences before that had not really gone the way that she liked. She didn't really understand some of the process. So I do think it's really important on that first initial call that you really get a good understanding of what that prospective seller is looking for in their real estate agent, so that you can make sure that you rise to the occasion and get a better understanding of how you can add value. And then I really also like the question number 11, looking at the house through buyer's eyes, because you can really get a better understanding of what the condition of that property is going to be, particularly if you are only having one opportunity to go in there, do the walkthrough, talk them through a pricing strategy, etc. It just gives you a little bit more intel there. And same with the above question, number 10. If there were other things that you were going to do to your house in the next 5 years, what would they be? So I love those questions. But again, I would just encourage you, don't memorize this like a script by any means. I want you to take it, use what works for you, and hopefully it'll add some value to your process. So thank you again to Samantha for being a good sport and being a great prospective seller. You'd be such an easy one to work with. Okay, so beyond that pre-listing interview, our goals on that pre-listing interview are to develop rapport and understand the motivation of the seller, because again, that's going to kind of pinpoint of what we need to do next in the process, right? Whether we're going to meet once, twice. Beyond that, our goal is to give a little bit of an overview of the process, which we did a very abbreviated overview. I did allude to that we would have 2 opportunities to meet, kind of gave a high-level overview of what we would be doing in both of those meetings. Okay, and then when I'm on the actual appointment, that's when I'm taking the time to actually go through the expectations of the seller process. And then, of course, on that call, most of the time it'll be a call. I know some people are setting appointments now by text and DM on social media. Hopefully you move that to a call, and then you can really get a better feel for the above 2 and decide if you're going to be meeting with them once or you're going to be meeting with them twice. All right, so then it's time to assemble our pre-listing packet and deliver that to the prospective seller. Now, again, right now, I know probably some of the meetings that we're going to be doing will be virtual, so absolutely fine to send that over by email. I just want to give you this quick overview. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Toolkit CMA, but for those of you that are on the call that might not be, we navigate to Toolkit CMA, create a presentation, and when we select from this drop-down, you see that the 4th one down is the pre-listing presentation. We select pre-listing presentation, create a new presentation, and then you can see here all of the documents that you have to choose from that you can include in that pre-listing packet. Okay, so depending on the area of that prospective seller, you might find it helpful to include a market share graph. A couple of things that I would absolutely include are website placement. They get a taste of where you'll be marketing the home. Unique visitors, so our web dominance, showing how much exposure Harry Norman gets on our website. Social media initiatives as well, so that's related to luxury portfolio. So that is price specific. And this overview right here of the home selling process, okay, that would be really important to include. And then Samantha had mentioned that she might need a little bit of help kind of with curb appeal, getting the home ready for showing. So you might want to include how to prepare your home for showings and then a curb appeal checklist. Okay, so that gives you a brief overview of where you can find that pre-listing packet. All right, so use Toolkit, great resource, makes you look super professional. And then next, smile because it's appointment time. All right, and just 3 quick questions to bear in mind as you're on your appointments that will always add value to that seller and to your experience to be able to articulate your value. First and foremost, the most important thing in the selling process of their home, okay, so that you can be sure to meet their expectations, leading into what do you expect out of the agent who lists your home. So we cover that in the pre-listing interview. If you don't have, for whatever reason, the opportunity to get that information on that first phone call, make sure that's a priority when you're face-to-face. And then same goes for their previous home selling experience. Really important to kind of understand what their experience has been in the past, so that you can make sure, A, if it was a bad one, we don't repeat history. B, if it's a good one, right, we understand how we can make it even better, or what they enjoyed previously, that we want to make sure to keep in mind as we're working with them as well. So those are just great ways that we can position ourselves to add value right up front, okay? So an overview of really what that seller process is going to look like on our appointment. So we're going to go to the property for our appointment, have our walkthrough. During that walkthrough, really primarily focusing on building rapport with that seller, right? So we might pay, special attention to the different things that are in their home, right? We see some skis, for instance, or a trophy or something of one of their children, right? We kind of get an idea of some ways that we might be able to make a connection with them. So really important to be able to kind of identify those things and how we might be able to connect with them. Qualifying the seller, so really just kind of understanding and making sure that that seller has true motivation to sell, and qualifying the house. So judging the curb appeal, interiors, what are some things that you might be able to do to add value to make sure that that seller is putting their best foot forward when you list. You'll review, just kind of do a brief review of the pre-listing interview questions. So I was taking notes while I was talking to Samantha, right? So what I would do is I would bring those notes along in a file, so that when we are finished with that property walkthrough, we can sit down and we'll kind of just review the things that we discussed on the phone just to make sure that we're on the same page. You're likely also going to have another person joining you, right? Another decision maker potentially. So really kind of important to make sure that they have a clear understanding and kind of a recap overall of how that first conversation went. And then last but not least, you'll do a review of the listing packet. So your listing packet being another listing packet that you create using Toolkit CMA, where you give an overview of all the marketing tools and resources. That's really kind of your opportunity to demonstrate your value, the value of Harry Norman, and further explain the process, okay? So that seller process that's highlighted on your screen, that would apply for that first appointment if we're doing the two-step process, okay? After we would review that listing packet, then we would be setting that next appointment to go through pricing strategy. But if we were only having one meeting, we would know after we go through that listing packet, then we'll need to go through the pricing strategy as well. All right, so I want to touch a little on, and this is the tail end of our presentation, but it's a really important place for us to end our time together, and that's on articulating your value and the value of Harry Norman. So this is the value wedge, value parity diagram, also something from Ninja, but I think it kind of perfectly, it's a really, really great illustration here. We see This bottom circle is you, top circle is the prospect, and the bottom circle is competition, okay? And this green area that's highlighted in the center, that's the value parity. So that's the things that you do that are the same. You both put their listing into FMLS, right? You both put a for sale sign in their yard. And then the value wedge, those are the things that differentiate you from your competition, okay? And so I want to focus on those points of differentiation. And really, when we think about the points that differentiate us, I think sometimes we can overcomplicate those. I think oftentimes our competition is probably rushing through this process, and they're not taking the time to articulate the little things, okay? So I want to make sure that we're really taking the time to over communicate and articulate everything that we're going to do throughout the process, so that we can differentiate ourselves. But then it's also kind of important for us to be able to speak to the power of the Harry Norman brand as well, right? So that's what I want to focus on next to kind of wrap things up with you. So there's many differentiators of why someone would want to work with Harry Norman over another one of our competitors. I've narrowed it down to 6, okay? So not saying there's many more, but for the sake of our time, right, we're just going to focus on 6. And I'm going to show you how these are kind of highlighted in that listing packet. So first and foremost, the power of our brand is a huge differentiator. Hopefully everyone knows that we were the first residential real estate brokerage in Atlanta, right? So we have over 90 years of experience, which definitely makes us the most knowledgeable and well-respected player in the field. So really let the power of our brand work for you when you're having these listing consultations, and give you confidence in how our brand is already perceived in the market before you even walk through the door, okay? Number 2, the support of the team that you have behind you. So this is one that I think we probably all kind of overlook or run through occasionally. So when I'm referring to the support, you have an incredible support staff that's behind you. And it's really important that your prospective seller knows that. So what I'm referring to is making sure that you're clearly communicating the team that's behind you. So that means your broker, for one, your very experienced broker that's going to be there for any question or situation that arises. Your in-house marketing coordinator. So I would harp on the fact that you not only have an in-house marketing coordinator, but you also have the corporate marketing team who is continuously working to keep our brand perception highly regarded in the market, right? And then you have your listing coordinator as well, okay? So your broker, your in-house marketing coordinator, we have the corporate marketing team, you have your listing coordinator. That's a really solid infrastructure that a lot of other brokerages don't have, okay? So that just helps you to be able to articulate when you're hiring me, Mr. Seller, you're not just hiring me. I have a great support team that's behind me to make sure that you have the best experience. Number 3, your marketing tools. So it seems like technology is a pretty big buzzword right now, and that's something that kind of makes all sellers' antennas go up, right? So the newest marketing tool that you have a huge competitive edge over any other brokerage is MIA. So your marketing innovation automated tool, right? That is kind of your marketing concierge, if you will. So that essentially gives you 3 layers of marketing right there. When we talk about your in-house marketing team, corporate, and then MIA, right? Which is going to send you automated marketing assets for that listing within 24 hours of going live, okay? So that you can quickly get the word out on that new listing and gain more exposure for your seller. So that's really important for you to articulate and highlight that in detail so they really understand how you're going to help to get their home sold effectively. Our luxury market experience, so as everybody knows, we have 5 luxury affiliates. We'll briefly touch on those. Not all 5 apply to all price points. So really important, we know the price point of the home that we're going into so that then we can focus on those luxury affiliates that might be beneficial and advantageous for that seller. Relo, so our relocation department, oftentimes, I think this is another piece that we could potentially miss. One thing that I found really interesting per Karen McRae is that 15% of all transactions within Harry Norman, they start out in our relocation department. Okay, so that's huge, all right? Our relocation has over 100 partnerships with different companies, different Fortune 500 companies, and relocation companies around the Atlanta area. And so that really helps us to identify pools of buyers where oftentimes we're able to sell in-house, but again, just gives more exposure to your seller as well. So that's 15% of all transactions start in our relocation department. And last but not least, being able to promote our family of services. So really being able to package them as their one-stop concierge to help make the entire process really smooth for them. So Prosperity Mortgage as applicable for a seller, HN Insurance, Township Title with our partnership with Campbell and Brannan, and then of course our home warranty partners, American Home Shield and 210 Home Warranty. So make sure that they understand that layer of your team too, and the support you have of those experts in each of their fields to help navigate the transaction with ease. Okay, so I want to flip over to this listing presentation. You're not going to believe who I created it for. None other than Brad Pitt. I know you're impressed. So what I want to do is just kind of quickly highlight some of the good talking points so that as you are sitting down going through this listing packet with a prospective seller, we kind of know how to talk to some of these pieces to further be able to articulate your value. Okay, so this first page highlighting that we're Atlanta's premier full-service realtors, serving Atlanta since 1930, 17 convenient sales offices throughout Georgia. So that's the time to talk about the power of our brand, right? And with the 17 sales offices throughout Georgia, that would be a really important time to talk about how that might be advantageous and beneficial to that seller. And one stat that you might want to write down that I got from our trusty CFO is we sell between 700 to 800 homes in-house per year, meaning Harry Norman agent to Harry Norman agent. So that is a lot of co-op opportunity where you can actually say that we're able to leverage all of those sales offices that we have throughout Georgia. Snapshot of the different areas that we serve. So we have a great large footprint and presence throughout Georgia. Of course, their listing would be featured in your sales meeting, etc. Right here, so you probably want to include one of the market share graphs as applicable. This one right here is for the core FMLS counties, showing that we have the highest closed volume in all price points, and that was for the prior 36 months. So it says for the last 3 years, Harry Norman has maintained consistent strength in the Atlanta housing market. So this just giving a quick snapshot of the marketing tools. So here is where we talk more in detail of some of our luxury partners that we have that can help bring additional exposure. We have Relo highlighted there as well. Our web dominance. So this, of course, is really important because their home will be featured on the Harry Norman website. You can see on average, I think this is probably a higher number. This actually needs to be updated. But at this point in time, it was over 87,000 views per month. We still advertise in local publications and luxury publications. Our marketing strategy will be shifting more digital, but we always maintain a presence to help maintain the strength and exposure of our brand. And then here is just a snapshot of some of the websites that their home will be featured on. Just alone with our affiliation with Leading RE right here, their home is featured on, I believe it's 565 other websites across the world because of our affiliation with Leading RE, okay? So that's really important thing to highlight as well, showing all the exposure that you can bring. And then, of course, our corporate relocation impact, working with over 550 companies in the metro Atlanta area. And this just gives kind of a sample of those companies that we do have partnerships with. And again, additional exposure and additional opportunities of buyers that we know are coming in the market that we can sell their home to. This talks a little bit just really about the quality of our brand, that you are local and global, so that we have good, strong connections through our partnership with leading real estate companies of the world to provide more opportunity to get their homes sold. And then here's the seller process overview. So particularly for a new seller, so someone that has not sold before, walking through this little circle with them step by step so they can understand what really is entailed in the process. Of course, reminding them you'll be there to guide them through each step of the way. But this is a great visual for them. Little detail on our family of services, so your opportunity to promote them as the one-stop shop, yourself as the one-stop shop. And then again, these great pieces on how to prepare their home for showings, and then this curb appeal checklist as well. So these can be kind of soft ways to have conversations on maybe a little interior or exterior work that would be most beneficial to help get that seller top dollar if they put a little time and attention to on the front end, okay? So does anyone have any questions on those things that we did just cover? All right, no questions. That's great. We're all on the same page. All right, good deal. So hopefully those will just help you to be able to just articulate the power of our brand even better than I'm sure that you already are doing when you're in the field. And again, I'll send this PowerPoint presentation over to you so you kind of have those on hand. But if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. All right. So as we're wrapping up, all right, a few tips from the pros. All right, so these are some tips from your fellow Harry Norman agents. First and foremost, being yourself. It's not about you. Remember, it's all about them. And I really like this one because remember, our main goal is to find ways that we can add value to them and position ourselves as their trusted advisor. Okay, so whenever we're going through the seller process, working with sellers, making sure that really the time of possession of who's doing the most talking, that's the seller, not us, right? We're taking the time to ask all the right questions so that we understand how we best serve them. And then going in like you already have gotten the listing, that really just goes back to your confidence. So making sure that you just portray confidence. Hopefully this seller process approach will give you confidence because you already kind of understand the fundamentals of what you're doing next, so that it's a little bit more of a seamless process that you have confidence in. And then also never forget the value of practicing good, true listening. So one document that I want to make sure that you bring your attention to, that we did not role play on today's call, which is equally important to your pre-listing interview, does cover some of the same questions though. It's that listing consultation PDF that's included. So make sure, I'll pull that up. Make sure that you walk through this as well, so that you get some ideas of how the flow and structure of that actual listing consultation should go. Again, just kind of using it as a little handy roadmap and guide, and taking the pieces that are most beneficial for you, okay? All right, so before we end things, I want to leave you with this quote by a man named Zig Ziglar. Probably there are many of you that know who he is. Masterful salesman. If people like you, they'll listen to you, but if they trust you, they'll do business with you, okay? And that's the main goal through this seller process, particularly when we're putting in place that two-step process, is to develop trust so that these sellers want to do business with us. And just final thought, while you might be working from your home office, have a little bit more time in your home, now's a great time to be going through your database, identifying people you may have lost touch with that you can reach out to, say hello to, and listen, keyword listen, for upcoming changes that are occurring in their life that could prompt a need in real estate, okay? So this gives you a time to really stay connected by phone and virtually, reconnect with people you've lost touch with, and refer to that Harry Norman marketing flow guide. So this kind of walks you through all of the various tools that are available that give you the opportunity to stay in touch with your network. So take the time to look at that during this time when we're spending a little bit more time in our home office, because that's what we want to do. We want to set ourselves up for success, put yourself in the best position, because everyone needs some place to live. There's always going to be a need for real estate, and I'm sure we're going to see things even back out soon, okay? So I've enjoyed my time with you. Hopefully you've enjoyed it equally and you found some valuable, helpful points that you can incorporate into your seller process. I'm going to check this questions pane one more time, see if there's any final thoughts or questions. Will you be sending the listing consultation? Yes, I'm absolutely glad to send the listing consultation if you're not able to download that handout. I had someone ask, what do you suggest for a brand new agent when they ask how many homes I've sold? So in that situation, I would absolutely, that one point that we talked about when we were discussing how you're going to differentiate yourself and your brand. I really want to make sure that you play up the incredible support that you have within your office, okay, so that seller understands they're not only hiring you, but they're hiring a team. And oftentimes it's not necessarily a bad thing if you are new, because that means you just have more time and attention to dedicate to that particular seller. So I think it's important for you to just be honest in that scenario, but then also make sure that you are giving them a solid understanding that you're going to have a lot of guidance and a lot of support. They're not just hiring you, they're hiring your incredible support staff behind you, and really make sure that you place a lot of extra emphasis on all the marketing tools that are available with Harry Norman. Play up all of the different technology that we have to offer, so that they can understand some of the other benefits of working with you as well. Hopefully that helps to answer your question. Is there a copy of this presentation online that we can access? As I said, I'll be sending out a copy of this presentation after we get off this call here. So are there any other questions before we sign off today? Just drop them there in the question box if so. And always feel free to just follow up with me separately as well. If there's something that you think of afterwards, please make sure that you drop me a note, we hop on a call and get connected. All right, so I'm looking at the question box. Someone did not get my name, which is perfectly fine. This is Emily Norris. I manage the Career Services Department. So it's nice to meet you virtually. I'm sorry we haven't had the chance to yet meet. All right, guys, well, it looks like that's going to be all of the questions for today. So thank you so much for your time, your attention. It was wonderful to be with you today. I hope it was helpful and added some value. And I will look forward to seeing you back in the virtual classroom soon. All right. Thanks so much.